This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Offensively, the Cleveland Browns have made some giant moves that will shake the status quo of that unit that we've discussed a ton, right? Bringing in Jerry Jeudy, new offensive coordinator, new running backs coach, new offensive line coach, new tight ends coach. Some of these coaches have serious college experience like Tommy Rees. But it's not just about what the offense is doing or even the defense, who hasn't made that many changes. The defense is essentially running it back, but they're running it back in year two with a roster that could be the best defense in the NFL, and a defense that at its peak last year was playing at a generational level. And I don't mean that in an exaggerative way. They literally were generational at points of last season. Now, the road woes were the road woes, and I've talked about how the road woes that this team had are a bit over-exaggerated. Like, I don't think the numbers really tell the true story, especially when you consider that the Browns' offense turned the ball over so frequently and was responsible for so many points that get credited to the defense when people make these graphics. But that whole thing aside, right? We know that the defense is great. We know that the offense is great. Well, at least it's trying to be great. And we know that the Browns have invested a ton of resources in the offense. They've invested a ton of resources in the defense. And then you look at special teams, and the Browns have also invested some resources there. It's an area of the team that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. And it's an area of the team that I think the Browns have talked about a lot this offseason, because to me, it seems like this is an area where they really want to get better. Now, a lot of us will look at special teams and think, well, the punts were good and the field goals were made. What are you talking about, Quincy? Special teams was great. Bubba Ventrone is doing a great job. But that's not really how that goes, right? Bubba Ventrone is not really going to be judged on the kind of job that Corey Bojorquez is doing or Dustin Hopkins is doing. He's not really going to be judged by the strength of his specialists, because a special teams coordinator's job isn't to teach a kicker how to kick. It isn't to teach a punter how to punt. Those are super specialist positions, which means long snapper, kicker, punter, those guys, their craft, it's kind of up to their own coaches to make sure that they're up to snuff, and themselves to make sure that they're up to snuff. The Browns aren't hiring Bubba Ventrone to try to make him a punt specialist or to try to, like, they just don't do that. That's not how NFL teams operate. Those kind of things are kind of independent of the team. So Bubba's job isn't really that. It's not where Bubba Ventrone's going to get kind of judged at when it comes to the Browns. Where Bubba Ventrone's going to get judged at, how does the team do in punt situations from a return standpoint? How are they returning punts? How are they stopping punt returns? How are they returning kicks? How are they stopping kick returns? How good are they at getting blocked field goals or getting blocked extra points or putting pressure on kickers to make sure the percentages aren't super high? Those are the things that Bubba Ventrone is going to get judged by, and those are the things that you really want to see the Browns improve on. Not all of those things, but a good chunk of those things. So I'll start here. Where Bubba Ventrone has done a great job is the Browns are a significantly better extra point and field goal defensive team than they were last year. And then they've been in quite a while, right? They block punts. They block field goals. They put pressure on punts, and they put pressure on extra points. And the numbers reflect that. The Browns do very well in those statistical categories. But there are some categories where the Browns don't do well in. First one's first. And if you notice, the Browns brought back James Prochet. They brought in Naheem Hines. I don't think that's a mistake that they're really investing in people who could potentially return. I wouldn't be surprised if they spent a draft pick on somebody that they think can return for multiple reasons, right? One, the rules are changing. The kickoff rules are changing, which means the nature of how Bubba Ventrone does his job is going to be very different. Now, here's one thing I'm going to be interested to see. Now, you're always going to have a special teams coordinator, but I am going to be interested to see with the new kickoff rules and with a kickoff's ability to look more like a run play and be kind of coached more like a run play. Will running back coaches or run game coordinators get more involved on the special team side now? It's going to be something to watch down the line, but for now, we'll just kind of talk about it in the traditional way. But with the kick return rules changing, that's going to be something that's important. Returns are going to be more important because the NFL wants to make these returns more of a part of the game. So things that I've kind of ignored that because I don't really care about how well you're doing in kickoff return, they matter now because the league wants you to return those kicks. And the Browns, they haven't done a great job at returning kicks. Now, kickoff return data is kind of hard. The Browns only had to return like 11 kicks last year because the defense was so good. But when it comes to punt return data, they did get a lot of punt returns this year because the defense was spectacular. They were second in return attempts, but eighth in return yards. They were 22nd in punt yards per return, so they weren't really great there either. They need to be better at returning these kicks, especially now since the kickoff rules are changing and these are going to be emphasized more. The punt return stuff, hey, if you're going to have a dominant defense, I'm always okay with a possession punt returner, right? I've joked about it on the show. I'm never going to complain about somebody who just makes smart decisions at the punt return position. If you want to push it and get somebody who's going to get some return yards, that's cool. But for me, honestly, I want somebody back there who's going to make a smart decision to put the guys that you pay tens and 20s and sometimes $40 million a year to move the ball, right? Like if you can just make the smart decision, not catch the ball at the one, let it bounce back for a touchback, get the best field position possible for the offense. That is all I really want a punt returner to do. Would it be great if that guy could do that, return, not muff punts, and be really good at returning? Yes, it would be a great boost if you can get 10, 15 extra yards. But I'm not going to sit here and act like I require it. I don't require it. I don't really it's a bonus to me. The main thing is, am I comfortable when the punt goes back there for you? Do I feel like you're going to do something incredibly stupid with the punt? Are you going to continuously put the team in bad field position spots because you're trying to get a return off? Those are the things that I care about. I just want the good field position. I don't want the offense to consistently be backed up on its own 10 because you don't know when to pick up a ball or not. Those are the things that I care about. The return data is what it is. If that means that we're going to get great returns. But the thing is, last year, you weren't even getting great field position, nor were you getting great returns. So that's got to improve. That's an area where Bubba Ventrone has to get better, and the Browns are investing in him getting better there. The Browns, Bubba Ventrone has been somebody who's consistently been, when he's the special teams coordinator, in the top 5 for special teams grade per Pro Football Focus. I think the Browns want him to get to that same level with special teams. This year, I think that's why they've brought in Naheem Hines. That's why they brought back James Prochet. That's why they're signing Jamie Hardy, Justin Hardy. I think that's why they're signing Justin Hardy and these special team aces. I think they signed 2 or 3 of them in the last month and a half. So this is obviously an area where the Browns want to get better, and they need to get better. Now, the area where they need to improve the most and why it makes sense that they've signed the guys that they've signed this offseason is because this was a awful special teams defensive team. They were just bad, no matter where you put it. They were fourth most when it comes to net punt yards allowed. Not great. They were sixth most when it comes to net kick return yards allowed. And look, when it comes to kickers and punters and how they're judged on this specifically, it's a little bit different than what we do when we judge them on how they are at punting. You know, when you get to coffin corner somebody, or how they are at kicking a football when they're kicking it for points. You don't want a ton of kickoffs returned, especially when the league is putting rules in place to make it really, well, when the league had rules in place to make it really difficult to return kicks. Now it's going to change, but you still don't want to give a team a ton of chances to return kicks, especially when your special teams defensive unit isn't good, right? The Browns weren't a team that were stifling guys on punt and kick returns. So the fact that they've had the second most punts returned last year and the fourth most kickoffs returned, to me read more like a mistake, like bad execution, than it does a strategy. Because why would it be a strategy? You stink when it comes to numbers. You stink at stopping these punt returns. You stink at stopping these kickoffs. It doesn't make sense to me that you would continuously want your specialists to put the ball in position to be returned. And especially when it's punters, like, it's not even really a choice. Like, you really don't want somebody to return a punt. You want to coffin corner them. You want to make them fair catch. But a return is never really a great option for a punter. So the being second in punts return, like, Corey has to get better at getting more hang time on his punts, so that doesn't happen. But with the kickoff thing, that's another thing where it could be strategy. The Browns might have wanted guys to return kicks. I don't know, but they weren't really great at it. So I don't know why they would want guys to return it, but you want those numbers to improve. You don't want the Browns to be at the bottom 5 of the league when it comes to stopping kickoff returns and stopping punt returns. And I think that's why the Browns have invested in so many special team specialists this year. And that's the kind of secret area of the team that the Browns are really working hard to improve. And in a draft like this, where there's not going to be a ton of prospects that the Browns love, especially in round 5, 6, and 7, right? Like, once you get outside of round 4, there might be 15 players that the Browns like that they like in the way that they feel like they can have potential to have a role on the team outside of special team. Maybe 15. 3 rounds, 15 players. More than likely, those guys are going to be gone by the end of round 5. So that tells me with those back end picks, they're really going to be looking at specialists. And I wouldn't be surprised if we find out later down the road that, the 5th round selection, the 6th round selection, is the Browns go with the 7th round selection, that all those selections were made by a scout working with the special teams unit, because that's what these moves are all about. But that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.